leave. I can get it right. I'm gonna go where the winners go. 'Cause selling ain't an option, no. It ain't in my blood. All I do is try to.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Mondays Beyond the Mic. This is the place where we go beyond surface level topics in relationships. This space provides us an opportunity to delve into more personal or profound aspects of our lives. So, thank you for watching. If this is your first time with us, please hit the like, share, and subscribe button. If you send a super chat, we get really excited on the show, and your comment will be read first. So, we do have a disclaimer. We're talking from our personal experiences and house rules. House rules, respect, respect, respect. I would like to state if disrespect is displayed in the chat or on the platform, individuals will be silenced or removed from the show. So I'd like to welcome my co-host, Lady Dawn B. Lady Dawn B, how are you on this Monday?
Happy Monday. I am good. I'm glad to be here. I cannot believe it is one more week. Happy St. Patrick's Day, right? That's today, right? I think for those who
Yeah, it
are.
is. It is. It is.
I forget. But I'm good. I'm good. How are you?
I am well. I am excited. It's a new Monday and it's still Women's History Month. So we
Oh,
love it that the people are coming in and they're saying hey to us. So we say hey right back, but make sure you're smashing that button and hitting the like, share, and subscribe because we want to help our show, but also Bravo with Sheila to reach those numbers. And we know that we can do it. So let's do this together. All right. So we talked about it is Women's History Month.
mm-hmm.
I we want to talk about some women that maybe some hidden figures, I like to call them, that we don't know much about. But tonight we're gonna learn you something today. How about that?
We're going to get to the learning, right? All right. Well, it
Absolutely.
is still Women's History Month. So, as Dr. E said, we are spotlighting some very important women that you may or may not know. So, this week's spotlight is Alice H. Parker, another hidden figure, as she likes to call her, in Black history. So, when it's cold outside during the winter months, it's nice to go inside your home or apartment, turn on the central heat, and feel all the warm and coziness, right? I know I do. I love it. I'll stay inside. Well, we have the inventor Alice Parker to thank for that. She invented a furnace that supplied central heating for entire homes and buildings. See, sisters are doing it. Alice Parker felt that the fireplace was not enough to keep her and her home warm during the cold New Jersey winters. And designed the first gas furnace that was powered by natural gas and the first heating system to contain individually controlled air ducts that distributed heat evenly throughout the building. Parker's heating system used independently controlled burner units that drew in cold air and conveyed the heat through a heat exchanger. This air was then fed into individual ducts to control the amount of heat in different areas. What made her invention unique was that it was a form of zoning heat, where temperature can be moderated in different parts of a building. Parker's patent design, which was filed on December 23rd, 1919, come on, do it for a long time, sis, allowed for cool air to be drawn into the furnace, again, then conveyed through a heat exchanger that delivered warm air through ducts to individual rooms of a house. The concept of central heating was around before Parker was born, but her design was unique because it used natural gas as its fuel instead of coal or wood that had been previously used. So we salute Miss Alice H. Parker today.
All right. So when you think about that heating in every area, just think of it was a black woman designed that. So Alice H. Parker. So tonight, we are going to discuss control and vulnerability in a relationship.
Mm.
So this is going to get a little deep.
Yeah.
Think about control. How do you think it shows up in a relationship? You laughing, lady.
I am. I am laughing because this is a conversation that I have had with myself most recently, and realizing some of my own spaces that I did not realize were spaces of me being in control or wanting to remain in control instead of allowing myself to be vulnerable. It shows up in relationships in the form of always wanting to do something, not allowing the other person, sometimes through our servitude. You know, we want to serve and we want to do a lot, and it can come off as us being just oh so gracious and helpful, when the truth of the matter is that we feel like when we do it right, or we want to make sure we do it so it gets done, or it gets done the way we want it done so we're not disappointed. And that does not leave us the room to be vulnerable and allow someone else in to do those things to us or for us. So I know for me, I'm guilty of that. I'm working on it.
All right, I'm gonna put the Me Too disclaimer in there. The Me Too, Me Too. So let's talk about it. It says control in relationships. So the mechanisms and the motivation. Control in a relationship often manifests as the need to dominate, regulate, or influence a partner's behavior, emotions, or actions. The need for control can arise from various sources, including insecurity, attachment issues, past experiences, and power dynamics. So we're going to just break that down a little bit. So, psychological need for control. According to the researchers Mulligan and Shaver, is self-regulation and attachment theory suggests that individuals may seek control in relationships to manage anxiety and protect themselves discomfort. This is especially true for individuals with anxiety attachment styles who feel the need for environment or relationship to feel secure. Researchers Levy, Ellison, and Finkley found that individuals with anxiety attachment are more likely to exhibit control behavior to maintain closeness and avoid abandonment. What do you think about that?
That is a whole mouthful of truth. There's some clarity. Listen, tonight this self-serving tonight. We got to put ourselves on the examination table tonight, because that was a whole mouthful of clarity. I'm like, okay, and all right. I don't do. Oh, so that's why I did that. But that is good, and I can agree. I can definitely say that I've experienced this, and it's good that now giving language to it so we know what it is. Because oftentimes we are displaying these behaviors, but we have no language to put to it, so we deem it as our norm, or this is just how I am. But I've experienced that. I really have. So this is so clarifying right now. It's ridiculous. Um, the emotional
This,
discomfort is what we try to avoid. But as say at this big old age, uh, I'm at a place where I have to experience the emotional discomforts so that I can grow past that blockage in relationships that I get to. That's my
all
truth.
right. All
Just
right. Well, we have people, they talking in the chat, and at least they're saying hello. So we want to be able to just shout out. So like Jessica said, hot topic. You can take it, Lady Dawn B.
all right. Where we at? This is our topic we got. Uh what was that? Kathy says, good evening, everyone. Good evening. Good to see you. Let's see who else we got in the building. Vaughn, oh, Vaughn, Invisible Man, Eric in the building. Blessings all. He makes sure everyone's included. Good to see you, Vaughn. Marilyn, my sis, it is good to see you in the building. She's saying hey to Anae. as well as the rest of us. Thank you guys for coming in on tonight. Bria says, "Hey, ladies. Hey,
Shay,
Bria.
yes. Mhm.
Hey, oh, good evening, Stephanie McDonald. Good to see you. Good to have you. Please like, subscribe, and share. Invite a friend. Anae is welcoming all the people. Our greatest moderator to ever do it in these YouTube streets. She's greeting Stephanie, and I believe she's also greeting Jessica. And those
Yes.
are all of our messages.
All right, so let's move on to the mechanism. So, control can manifest through behaviors such as monitoring a partner's actions, withholding affection, demanding constant reassurance, or using guilt or manipulation to influence the partner's emotional behavior. These behaviors serve as a coping mechanism to protect the individual from perceived threats to the relationship.
Mm,
It's going to be tight tonight.
yeah.
It's going to be tight, but we're going to move on so that we can get to the clip. So there's also called power and control in relationships. And we wanted you to talk to us in the chat. So, if you can't say, as they say in church, if you can't say amen, say ouch.
Say
So
ouch.
we're going to be ouching tonight. Power and control in relationships. The power dynamic in relationships are central to understanding control. According to French and Raven, classic framework on power, control, and relationships can manifest through coercive power, reward power, and legitimate power. Research by Finkel on power and control in relationships show that individuals who exert control often use it to manage their emotions. I'm at wow. I'm at wow.
I'm with you.
Yeah, we're gonna have to talk. We have to, yeah, we're gonna need them therapists that's running at the end. We're gonna need some work. So
I
let's
will.
show this clip.
The need to be in control of everything can be a trauma response in an effort to try to feel safe. However, sometimes the harder you try to hold on to control, the more out of control you actually feel because this outward behavior is not acknowledging internal emotional voids that you're ultimately trying to compensate for. So, what can you do? We can shift and expand our emotional vocabulary to effectively communicate these internal things that's happening so that we're not just resorting to the external behavior that other people might not understand. This can sound like, I feel anxious in situations where I'm uncertain of what to expect, and that feels unsettling. I feel vulnerable and uneasy when I have to trust other people to have my best interest at heart, and that makes me feel uncomfortable. I feel insecure and inadequate when I don't feel prepared, and I fear being rejected. So these things reduces the urge and the need to feel in control of everything and operate in this narrow lane of overcompensation. So I challenge you to do it different this time. Trust and just let go.
Uh, yeah, I'll start. I'll start. I think that this is so spot on. I think, or when I think of myself, I think in those areas of having to be in control of my emotions at all times, and that anxiety piece that she spoke about. But the one thing that I love about this show is we're not just going to throw out information without giving tools, right?
Right.
So being able to verbalize and vocalize, as she was saying in the clip, to say, I feel anxious when X, Y, and Z. And I think it's also feeling or having a place that you trust when when you're vocalizing how you feel, whether that's in a friendship, in a relationship, or any relationships that you're in, being able to express yourself and to be vulnerable in those spaces, which is hard when you're used to being in control of yourself. So it's one thing to talk about a partner that's controlling. It's another thing to take the mirror, look at yourself and say, why do I do these things? And what are my attachment styles and the reason why.
Hmm.
What are your thoughts?
I can agree with that. And I know, and we're not one voice, one sound. We just happen to be a lot of the same person, you know. We're birthday twins, so you know. But
This is true.
I think one of the major things when it comes to this control piece is us being willing to take that. It has a lot to do with the risk factor of relationships. We don't want to take the risk unless we know that it's a sure thing, you know, and we have developed these cocoons of safety for us, forgetting that we're also blocking people out while we're trying to protect what we're holding within, you know, our feelings, our emotions, you know, from being hurt. But we have to be willing to first acknowledge, you know, like she was saying, it takes a lot, first of all, to acknowledge that I am anxious. A lot of people don't want to acknowledge the fact that we all, I believe, and it's just Dawn 101, you know, suffer from or deal with some level of anxiety in our lives. We, you know, everyone has experienced that in some way. And emotional anxiety is, I feel for me, is very heavy. Like, you know, I don't want you to like me too much because I like you too much. And then if I like you too much, I'm not going to go back to the one I did before. But if I like you too much, then that means I'm giving too much. And I'm going to, you know, and it's all in within the premise of trying to make sure that I'm securing, you know, this relationship, this person, that I'm doing what needs to be done, but with the fear of not being perfect and not getting it right. But how do we grow unless you get some things wrong, you know? So I think we have to be very careful with this control. You know, I was writing down and I was like, you know, acknowledging that this is one way that I am anxious about something. And then it's one thing to acknowledge it to myself, but then for me to be able to express it to you, that's a whole nother level for me. Like I'll write it in a note, but for me to speak it out my mouth, it's a whole.
You're doing it like Aaliyah. You're going to do a 4-page letter. Read this. And I think, you know, just to think about that when it talks about the emotional piece of it, I think when it comes to anxiety and is normally with people who are overachievers. Like we got to get it right, and so you build up to, what if I get this wrong? This whole rejection piece, whether that could be at work or in a relationship, and so now you don't want to be disappointed because now you have to trust that to someone else. Is one thing for what I can totally hold on to, but you're not, or we're not responsible, or we can't control how another person acts or feels towards us. So for those of us that struggle in this area, it's hard because it's like, I need to know what's going to happen. And if I can't control the outcome, then this is what I will do to make sure at least I can control this space. But if we look at it and think about the clip, are we really growing? Are we really living our best life, or seeing what is available to us because we won't let go? Talk to us in the chat. We got Mr. I love to read Mr. Von Erich's comment. I could hear the laughter as he typed this in.
Of course.
You want to read it, lady?
Yes, he said, wait, hold on. What did he say? He said, I'm in control. He in his Janet Jackson voice. First of all, I didn't know you had a Janet Jackson voice, but now that we do know that, we will be calling on you to impart that. It is a musical selection um, as we go along. You know, let's see. We also got Jessica, who says some people will sabotage a whole relationship instead of being vulnerable and release control. And that's true. You know, I think I used to have the mindset, and I've been trying to reverse it, that it's one thing if I let myself down. It's another thing if I let you let me down. So I would definitely try to contain, you know, control the narrative. Like, no, we operating in this space. That's nope. And until we get to the end of this space, I'm not, nope. You know, but it it blocks you in. Like you said, it doesn't allow you to live life because now you are boxed into this space and that you can't get out of. You will never be more than the space that you're in. So
Yeah, and
definitely agree.
I think going back to what was said, um, past experiences, past hurts. So a lot of times we move on what has happened to us in the past, and when we go like, no, I don't want to feel that anymore, so I'll remove my feelings from this, and again we'll operate with
Mhm.
everything else around us and never dive that because we don't want to go back to that place of trauma. And that's what she called it. That is a trauma response if we really think about it. So,
I can
all
agree.
right. Okay,
Let's
let's
see.
let's let's move on. And if anyone, we can drop the link if anyone wants to come up and join us as we and so Ladies on B and I are not out here just being all vulnerable and showing ourselves, you know.
Right.
But we hope that people are learning and willing to take the mirror and look at themselves as we look at ourselves and say, hey, if we want to grow, we need to learn, put words to what it is, and then move forward from there.
Yes,
Um,
indeed.
and please hit the like button. Please, please, please. If you like us, just do like that for us. That's it. Just like tap. Please and thank you. Subscribe, share with someone, send us a super chat, please. Thank you. All right. So the role of vulnerability in here. So research by Brene Brown emphasizes the importance of vulnerability in building trust, empathy, and connections in relationships. Vulnerability fosters emotional intimacy by allowing individuals to share their fears, desires, and flaws, creating a safe space for emotional closeness.
Hmm.
Okay, let's talk about positive outcomes that happen from that. Vulnerability in relationships is linked to greater relationship satisfaction, increased empathy, and improved emotional regulations. According to Mulligan and Shaver, when both partners are vulnerable, they are more likely to feel understood and supported with which deepens the emotional bond. What are your thoughts?
I can believe that to be true. That when both partners are vulnerable, they're likely to feel understood and supported, um, with deepened emotional bonds. I think when you go through something with someone, um, and you understand that they're going through it with you at the same time, there's no longer a point of what is it, empathy versus sympathy,
Mhm.
because they truly do understand, although your journey is yours and theirs is theirs. You find that we can be more vulnerable when we're in spaces where there's no judgment. And it's hard to judge someone who's going through taking the same journey that you are at the same time, and then you have that support with one another and can talk each other through or just sit there with each other and just comfort one another and know that a person is not pacifying you, but they really do understand. And I think that's one of the things in vulnerability is that we don't want to we want to be in a place where people understand why I'm feeling like I'm feeling, or why I'm hesitant to expose. But when you make me feel understood, I feel more comfortable in sharing, my places of lack or my places of deficit. And through that and how you respond to it, definitely creates a deeper emotional bond because I'm giving you a piece of me that I haven't given to anyone else. And you handle
Mm.
it right and you handle it well.
And I think that's it. I think going back to the earlier thing about control, we have given pieces of ourselves to people who mishandled us. So
Hmm.
therefore, we think going forward, people will mishandle us in any situation. It could be a work situation, it could be, in the relationship situation. So we had this expectation, and then the person or persons let us down. Now it's like, I don't trust anybody, the walls are up, and it's harder. We say we want something, but then we don't know how to go about getting it. So we may cry. It made me think of uh like babies. You look at them and you're like, are you tired? No. But you see them, the eyes are, drooping and doing all of these things, and they're crying. You like, you're sleeping. We like, no. And as adults, it's like, I want to do you want to love? No, we're doing all these other things except saying, this is really what I want to do. I don't know how to express it. So this talks about going a little bit to the challenges and fears of vulnerability. It says, despite its benefits, vulnerability can be difficult, particularly for individuals with a history of emotional wounds, attachment insecurity, and trauma. According to Bowley attachment theory, individuals with avoidance attachment styles may struggle to embrace vulnerability, fearing it will lead to rejection or emotional harm. These individuals may distance themselves emotionally or avoid sharing their feelings in a relationship. So to me, that thinks of when you go like, honey, do you love me? And you don't tell me you love me anymore. And it's like, well, if I change my mind, I'll let you know, opposed to just constantly hearing or wanting to be affirmed or hearing the words of affirmation that you love them. Um, so I'll go in the other part. It's vulnerability versus self-protection. People who struggle with vulnerability, the desire for emotional self-protection can inhibit the ability to be open. This for me is like, ouch, ouch, ouch. Studies have shown that vulnerability requires the courage to face emotional risk, but it can be difficult for those who fear rejection, abandonment, or emotional pain. What are your thoughts?
Well, I mean, you brought up several good things. So I want to backtrack for a quick second, because when we talk about that fear of, we're hurt, we've given pieces of ourselves to the wrong people, and now we don't want to give those pieces of ourselves to anyone else. One thing that I've learned is that when we're in that situation, we fear that the most because we're still in the same circle. So you're going to get the same result from the same circle. You keep, again, same spirit, different face, and we have to um, get ourselves, you have to acknowledge, like, I need to change, because everyone is not going to be that last person. But if you keep picking someone that was like the last person, you're going to keep repeating that same cycle. So, we have to, again, be vulnerable on a different level to be willing to now switch circles, like something different, improve myself so that I can be in a different space. The whole point of, the trauma that we go through, that we still hold on to, um, we lack that vulnerability, I believe, because we still lack a place of solid healing, because healing takes time. But as we heal through things, even in our emotions, we should be getting stronger. We should be able to withstand this much when I couldn't stand it before, and as we grow. So the more that we are growing in our healing solidly, then we won't, we'll have more of a foundation where we won't be so fearful of the same reaction or response. We are combating that trauma with facing it and then putting it under us, and using it as a footstool. I definitely feel, um, with the courage to face emotional risk when it comes to self-protection, it's like that part right there. Yeah, it's like a Selah moment. You have to be willing. This is just so real. This is like real life time for me right now.
Real time
Real
situations.
time, real life. You are experiencing this with me in real time because I have these conversations with myself. Like you said, you're ready to love, you want to love, and it's like, I'm ready to love. I am. You say one thing with him, but you don't want to get back into that space. But I think that when you seal yourself, I know that there are parts of me that I will never expose to um, spaces that are going to be detrimental to me anymore. I've learned that lesson. So I think you have to learn your environment and know what's detrimental to you and don't go back in those spaces. Or if you do, don't show up like you did before. Show up stronger because then you will not put yourself in those situations where you will need self protection because love should be safe. You shouldn't have to feel fear in love. So when you do, you have to question, is that love? And, what am I exposing myself to?
I like that. That is really good. And I was also just thinking, in addition to that, is it that we found ourselves in these spaces and places because we didn't want to let go? It was familiar to us, right? To your point of same circle. If you find yourself with the same, and let's go, the same spirit, right? Different faith, same spirit, then what is it about us or me that I have to learn a lesson so that I can level up and come out of that space and place that I can be vulnerable or I can release I almost like areas of control because to your point, it's going to take time. It's not going to be like, oh, okay, I trust you fully because it's almost like waiting for the other shoe to drop. You meet
Mhm.
somebody, you're like, nah, that's too good to be true. So although you're going, yeah, I'm watching, oh yeah, but you're waiting for that person to do something so you could say, see, I knew X, Y, Z. So that's carrying the baggage from prior relationships. And again, that could be friendships, that could be, romantic relationships, that could be work relationships. If you've ever felt betrayed or misused in an area, then you bring those things with you instead of unpacking them and being able to say, in this space, everyone gets a fresh start and I'm not going to judge you according to my past relationships. I'm not going to judge you according to my past hurt. And I need to heal in those areas. So I'm not walking around or trying to trauma bond
Right.
with
Just
someone.
mention that.
And look,
Just
Jessica,
that.
we were thinking the same thing, trauma bonding.
It's true. It is very true. Vaughn, you know what? Wait till you get up here. Look, let it out, Darby.
Like he's not going to click the link to get on here.
Right, right. See, because it's in the chat. It's in the chat. That's really good. He also said, "Wow," and they said that was a great analogy that you gave. I'm just reading a little bit backwards. I want to make sure we get to everybody's comments. Stephanie says some people are scared to show their vulnerability. A lot of us are. Marilyn says sometimes when we allow you to see our vulnerable side and relinquish control, it's confused with us being in our feminine energy. And it could be male as well. You have to have a safe place. But that safe place has to start with you. Like we have to do that inner work. We I think sometimes expect everyone to create this soft environment for us to be vulnerable in. I think where vulnerability to me requires a level of aggression because you have to push past that very strong feeling of fear and risk, and you can't do that meekly. You got to break through that. I know for me, one way that I established a control factor also and avoided being vulnerable was, and this is no disrespect to anybody in my life or past, but I will say this because we're talking truth. This is my therapy tonight. I actually I would date down every so I would date down. because it was easier for me to remain in control of how much of me I wanted to give because there was no challenge. You know, as opposed to dating, say, someone on my level or someone who would challenge me and be like, young lady, miss, like, hold the, that stretching that we didn't want to do, that takes you out of that comfort zone. Because when you are used to mastering things, and again, that's a form of control, like, I know what I'm doing here. But when you're the new kid in the room and you feel extremely vulnerable because you don't know what the order is, you don't know how this is going to work, I don't know how I'm going to perform. It's that trust factor. And I avoided that for as long as I possibly could. But it did not benefit me any, because at the end of it, the relationship wasn't growing. It wasn't feeding me. It became they became boring. It's like, okay, it's good for, not that the person was boring, but when there's no growth, there's no evolution, there's no change, there's no stimulation. And that was because I wasn't allowing myself to relinquish control and be vulnerable to be with someone who could challenge me to better. So that's just my truth. I'm just, saying, since we're here. Jessica says it's hard to do that if you haven't forgiven yourself.
Yeah. And I think, to your point and to Jessica's point, a lot of times we beat ourselves up about our past mistakes, right? We will look at and go, how could I be so stupid? How could I, how come I didn't see that? How come whatever it is? And not realizing this is a part of our growing pains, and realizing to be vulnerable is actually to be strong. And it's funny because I had a conversation with, I'm gonna call my therapist, and said to me, you deal with control and vulnerability, and challenged me to do something, and I did it. And once I did it, it was so freeing. I was like, oh my gosh, this is the best feeling, because once I was able to articulate and verbalize how I was feeling, it took the sting out of in my head. Because what we'll do, or what I was doing in my head, I was creating this whole narrative without having a conversation with the person. And the person, well, you don't want to have the conversation because you think you may be rejected, or you think, and I was like, I don't know. And I felt like it was more, I didn't want to show emotion. I wanted to feel like, I'm Wonder Woman. I got my bracelets, or, I can, I'm going to be fine. And not realizing, but mentally I was playing this story over in my head, trying to figure out what was the right answer. And the person, why don't you just ask the person? And I was like, yeah, there's a thought. And once I did that, I was being vulnerable. It was such a freeing experience that after I did it, I had to call the therapist and was like, I did it. It was great. And they laughed, but I'm like, okay, I'm good on this. So I think it's learning that part. But even to Jessica's point, forgiving yourself and being okay with, if it doesn't work out, then it's okay.
Yeah.
So let's, oh, I'm sorry. I was gonna say, let's look at this clip on vulnerability.
Is that when you are in uncertainty, when you feel at risk, when you feel exposed, don't tap out. Stay brave, stay uncomfortable, stay in the cringy moment, lean into the hard conversation, and keep leading. Stay brave. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying you need to overshare. I'm not saying you need to disclose. I'm not saying you need to weep uncontrollably to show how human you are. I'm saying try to be aware of your armor. And when you feel vulnerable, try not to transform up. Try to stay human, keep leaning. Very different things.
Well, now,
there's that. She said, don't tap out. Don't tap
lean
out.
into it. Lean into it.
That's
And
the hard.
think that part about the armor is like when you feel all of a sudden I'm putting these walls up because you will not hurt me. You will not make me feel a certain way. Wait a minute now. Stop the press.
Oh, I got it.
Hello, Von Eric.
Here we go. I gotta sip my Pepsi for this now.
Oh, how
So
y'all
what are your
doing?
thoughts? We're good. We're good, sir.
Oh man, y'all spending some wisdom. As far as vulnerability and control. I mean, Dr. E got her couch out, and Lady Dawn B is pulling
I,
out.
no,
That, I mean, and then Lady Dawn put her couch out, and then Dr. E poured her soul. Okay, I love this. This is
you do, don't you? You do.
okay. I think it should be control. I know sometimes control, when it comes to me, um, I like to balance it out. I also don't like to be in complete control because I feel as though it'd be too much on me that I end up striking out. Because the other person is not in it with me as far as sharing the control of a relationship or anything that is involved within our lives. So, but then at the same time, when it comes to vulnerability, um, what you said, Dr. E, sometimes I did do that. Sometimes when I see something and this person is okay, and as soon as they do something wrong, I'm like, wait a minute, hold up. Whoa, whoa, whoa. And it's like all of a sudden I start making a turn, and I had to learn as time went on, even though a person may act or did something, that action was like a person in my past relationship, doesn't mean that heart was there. It was something, it's just a response that they did. And I'm interpreting it as they did the same thing as this other person that was in my life. But the heart was different. It was in a different way. And that heart wasn't there. So I had to learn to make sure I have a complete interpretation on why this person did certain things, that I may take it as they doing the same thing as what someone else did.
That's a good point.
So you're saying they have a different motive?
Right. The motives were different. And I took it
I,
as it was the same thing as another person did, and it wasn't.
I definitely agree with that. I think sometimes what we do is we put people in a box and
Mm-hmm.
we say, oh, well, this person did this to me, so you're doing the same thing, opposed to someone may have no idea what it
Mm-hmm.
was that you experienced, and we're not willing to be honest or vulnerable to the person and say, hey, these are some things that I don't like, and here are the reasons why. And maybe it's, and I'm making this up, but maybe it's something like, if I reach out to you and I don't hear from you, it makes me feel like this,
Mm-hmm.
opposed to, oh, I know you saw I called you. How come you didn't call me back?
Right.
And now it turns into an argument, opposed to saying, when you don't call me back, it makes me feel like
Right.
whatever, putting words to how you feel opposed to acting out how you feel.
Mm-hmm. And I think something like you said, like the analogy that you said, sometimes someone, well, if this person don't call me back, doesn't mean this person is doing this. What is this person? He or she could be busy. He or she could be doing this. And sometimes a person may not know. Just because a person wants you to call them, that doesn't mean a person wants you to call them because they're checking up on you. Doesn't mean they think you're cheating or something like that. Just a person just like when for a call, just to talk or something like that. So it must be clear as far as who you with, and to know that person is who you with, and not judging. And like you said, putting them in a box or not making the judgment of something that you may have heard or you experienced in the past, because this person could be totally different, even though their actions may be the same.
Roderick Brown, welcome, Rod. Good to see you. He says, good insight. Thank you for joining us tonight. Glad you're here. I think also, Dr. E, you made the good point of um, us speaking it out as opposed to us acting it out. You know, like just those two differences. And you have to, we got to understand that speaking it out requires you to acknowledge the emotion that you're feeling, which usually feels you feel like you're rejected, or you feel like you are being neglected, or you think that you're being avoided, and no one wants to admit that this person makes me feel or is making me feel this way intentionally or unintentionally. So we have to be really mature, I want to say, about it, and be willing to own your feelings and acknowledge. I know one of the worst things that I struggled with was saying, like, this person hurt me. Like, I'd be like, you would never know. They say, never let them see you sweat. But like, boy, bye. Just like you would never know. I would never let you see that. And I've come to the point of, and that would be me acting it out, as opposed to stopping and saying, listen, I did not like when you did this. This is how this made me feel. But that requires me to acknowledge it's a point for me of, I want to say, how can I put it? It was a point of me of self-disappointment, when I felt like I allowed this person this space of control that put me in this position for them to be able to not do this, And it could have been like nothing further from the truth. Again, it wasn't intentional, but it's owning what you feel. But I would not allow myself to be like, I don't feel that. I'm not mad. I'm not, it's like, okay, whatever. You go ahead. That's all right. I don't have to talk to you. I got 16 other people that I could call in this hour. How these are the things that we do. These are the to avoid just feeling the feel. But the 16 other people is not who I want to talk to.
Right.
And instead of taking that time to sit and say, hey, I felt neglected, or I felt rejected, or I felt unconsidered, because I wanted to hear from you. I wanted to spend time with you. I wanted to do this. But instead, like you said, we acted out. So we have to come to that place of maturing within ourselves to be able to verbalize. I'm reformed now. I'm reformed. So I can
I see. Just like Lee said something here. She said, I agree with everything that Jessica T. Locks has said thus far. I wanted to also just go back to that whatever you said. I think we are, or I can say, I have been famous for whatever. Like, I'm good on you, whatever. And usually that whatever means I'm hurt.
Yeah.
I didn't like the way you treated me, but whatever. Right. Do you. Like, things that this feels like, what's that show that used to be like, things that a Black woman will say, whatever.
Right.
I'm good on you. You ain't got to worry about me. We say all of these things opposed to acknowledging my whatever actually means I'm hurt.
I'm hurt. So shouldn't a person take control then? Like what you just said, and let's just say we were together, and I seen that because I know you, right? Shouldn't a man or a woman take control when a person, even though a person didn't show the actions, or they may not just show the words, but they know and take control and be vulnerable to that person?
Are you saying if your significant other is saying whatever, that you should then take control, or the person who's saying whatever?
Take control within yourself, and also be vulnerable to that person's needs because they are hurt.
I think you're saying it for them.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, well, I at first think, but I think it's about self-work. I think you have to, as the partner, right, or the other person, being able to say, okay, I realize, and I'm just going to use Elaine is in her feelings right now. And saying, I didn't mean to hurt you, and I know this is how you may feel, but that's great, and that feels supportive. But I have to acknowledge and be able to say, I was hurt when you did X, Y, and Z, because I think, and this is just my opinion, if
Mhm.
the other person is feeding into it, is not going to help. I'm going to use me. It's not going to help me grow. What is actually going to make me do is I'll just throw a bigger tantrum.
Yeah, but yeah, that's true. But as Lady Dawn B, who said they reform? Who said that?
That was me. I said
Okay,
it.
I thought so. So as a reform, as a I'm sorry.
What we
as a
doing?
as a reformed person,
Mhm.
you wouldn't act what Dr. E said, right? As a reformed person, you wouldn't do what she just said.
At this point, no. Now,
Okay.
what I will say is, um, from both sides of your point,
Hmm.
one, I would not suggest that the person who is listening to the response of whoever's saying whatever feed
Hmm.
into that. Like, you have to know the situation. You got to pick your spots,
Right.
because if you do, you will
Hmm.
be enabling that person to stay in that space and never get to that point of self growth where you are verbalizing and articulating for yourself. You're not connecting with what you're feeling. You're
Hmm.
actually enabling them to rely and stay in the excuse of it, and stay in there, having their pity party. And that's
Okay.
not what you want, because at a certain point, you, the person who realizes that this person is hurt, you're
Hmm.
going to get frustrated. You're only going to pacify a person but for so long.
Right.
And then you're going to know, and it's going to be like, listen, this is not working, because if you can't communicate with me, and then it comes off straightway like as a lie,
Okay.
because you're not being truthful to me. Like, let's have the conversation, let's have the heated discussion, let's have the opposing sides. And that speaks to the strength of your relationship with that person.
Right.
Your,
Okay.
your relationship is only as strong as the conversations that it can endure.
Right. Okay.
Mm.
So I have to, how are we supposed to build? How are we supposed to grow? How are we supposed, if we don't have these hard conversations? And I need you to call me out on my stuff. Now, in the sense of, you're saying, like, shouldn't that person then um, become vulnerable and say to that person, like, hey, listen,
Hmm.
I see that, I know when you say whatever, it's not that you're okay. And
Right.
you can call a person to the carpet
Hmm.
and say that. But I think you just have to be very careful, because you don't want to be damaging to them any further, because they're already in a guarded state. So
Hmm.
you just got to know how to say it and how to approach it and pick your spots and be like, okay, sometimes some men, I know, they're like, I'm going to let you, like, you got two times
Hmm.
and I'm not going to ask you no more,
Right.
because then that makes you a slave to their emotions and their lack of communication.
Okay. So basically, basically both of y'all are saying is you have to know when to pick your battles. You have to be aware because then you could be what over too much into it and end up getting bitten yourself or something like that, or end up could getting hurt, or if you feed into it. Is that what y'all saying?
I think, but I think there's two things, and I know Jessica. We could drop the link again. So Jessica says she's trying to get on. Um, I think in one instance, to Lady Dawn B's point,
Mm-hmm.
if you're in this relationship with the person, you say, I see when you say whatever, blah, 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 it should open up communication with the significant other. But
Mm-hmm.
if you just keep doing it and they're not growing and they're using it, that you now enable that person,
Person.
you're enabling that behavior. And it just makes me go back to thinking about children,
Right.
right? If you don't stop a certain behavior, I'll never forget something my mother said. I had a friend who allowed her child to like throw these tantrums. And my
Mm-hmm.
mother looked at her and said, what you think is cute at
Mm-hmm.
2 is not going to be cute at 12, is not going to be cute at 22. So if you don't stop this behavior now, you're going to have a problem later.
I got you. Okay. I see. I see. That's wisdom. Okay. Reform. Okay. I hear you, reform. And doc,
I can almost listen, I was the queen of the shutdown. I really was. I was with you. We could talk about anything, but when it started to get real to my emotions and the core of them, I was shut down in a heartbeat. And it
Right.
was not a healthy way to be because it was not getting me what I wanted. It
Oh,
wasn't serving me in any way. It was actually being more damaging. And I believe in a lot of sense, it was also actually admittedly very disrespectful to the person that I was in a relationship with, because it's saying to you that I don't even trust you enough to share with you in this moment, in this situation. Truth is, we're both being vulnerable in this situation to talk about whatever is going on, whatever the offense is, because it takes just as much as energy for you to sit and be open to hearing what I'm saying and receiving it as it does for me to be able to sit down and articulate and share with you. So we have to have that, it just didn't speak very well to where I was, but I'm reformed now. Like I said, I'm reformed.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, I hear that.
She
Reform now.
free. So,
You,
Yeah.
you,
Kathy said, yes, we must speak truth and kindness. And I think that's it. It's
mhm,
approach because if this is my first time doing this in this new relationship,
mhm,
and you come at me in a harsh way, I'm going to just, those walls, I'm going to transform and I'm going to go further in. But if you can speak, the Bible says, with loving kindness have I drawn thee. If you can speak lovingly, and
mhm,
it'll say, okay, I can peel back the layers. And
mhm,
everyone comes with their own set of, I'm going to say, trauma, baggage, however we want to call it. But it
mhm,
takes the right person to help you unpack. It takes the right person to help you say, I want to be a better person for me, but also for this relationship. You're not doing it for the other person, but that person brings out the best in you. And they want to see the best from you. And you know the difference when someone's trying to beat you up, with words, opposed to build you up.
Hmm.
Is it different levels of vulnerability?
Say that again.
Is it different levels of vulnerability?
I think that yes, there are, because I can be vulnerable to a surface level, right? And then I can be vulnerable where I'm going to really let you in.
Okay.
So I think that is what becomes a big part of it for us. What is the level in which I'm willing to give you in
Okay.
my vulnerable state? Because I can just tell you surface stuff. It's still me being vulnerable, but I'm not really allowing you to get to know me and know the things that really trouble me, or the things that may keep me up at night, or what are the things that I worry about, or the things that are constantly on my mind.
Hmm.
And that comes with the type of relationship a person has with one another, to be able to open up. It's like your best friend. You didn't
Hmm.
just one day wake up and be like, hey, you're gonna be my best friend, let me tell you all my life story. That came with time and trust, that you can
Okay.
talk to some people and it doesn't matter, you'll go into the deep places and tell them things, and some people you've known for years and will always stay surface with them.
That's true.
Mm. What about accepting? Is it different levels of acceptance when it comes to vulnerability too? Because some people
Yes.
go ahead.
No, I'm listening, finish your statement.
Because some people may not like or able to handle certain levels of vulnerability. So is it um, levels of that when it comes to acceptance?
I'm going to say yes. I'm going to think that there's going to be levels to anything. Now,
Mm,
it's up to if your person will be able to accept
mm,
whatever it is that comes with you, and vice versa. If it's
mm,
not your person, one person could accept level 1 to 3. Another person may have a threshold from 4 to 8. The next person could take you from 8 to 12. So I
mm,
think it all depends on how much, because relationships are investments,
mhm,
and how much are you willing to invest. And if you're a parent, you think about I don't know why I keep talking about kids tonight, but if you're a
Man, you
parent,
got kids or your mind. You trying
you're
that up top?
apparently, um hey, watch it, Vaughn. You was all right until you just but with
Don't
your
let.
children, you are your tolerance and your patience and your level of acceptance looks different because of the deep love you have for them.
Okay.
Hey, Jessica.
Hello, Jessica.
Yay! Hello. I was
Uh,
struggling a little bit. My camera was not allowing me to get on, but I'm here. Yeah, I thought it was a somebody said in the comments about being kind in the way in which you are, operating in kindness, and when you're seeing someone who's struggling to be able to be vulnerable and you're trying to get them to open up. I think that makes such a huge difference. And I think it takes you mirroring that vulnerability for them to feel that it is safe for them to come out. I think that, when I think about my past relationships, when, talking about some of the, like, I can think about my daughter's father. It was really hard for him to be vulnerable, when when we were in our relationship with each other. And it took me just being able to just let him know what I was feeling, and let him know, like, I care about his feelings. I want to understand what's going on with you. I don't know, like, you have all these ideas in your head that you're expecting, or expectations of how you're expecting me to act or react, without communicating to me what you really feel. And that's not a fair for the relationship. And it's only going to continue to keep us fighting. I want to be able to be there for you, but I have to, you got to let me in and let me know what you're feeling. So it took, and I also had to, like, acknowledge when they were making the steps, when he was making the steps and saying, I'm really proud that you actually shared this with me, and not pushed his feelings to the side, because it gave him the first time a space to feel safe, because in other spaces in his life, he had never felt safe enough to be able to share. So I think that's really important. When someone put in the comment section that said, to be kind, because you never know if this is the first time someone is ever having the opportunity to actually feel safe enough to be vulnerable. And then not having that vulnerability thrown in their face neither. So you have to be careful, so that way that, when they share things with you, that you don't come back around and use it against them, because then that again makes them feel as if, okay, now you're giving me the same spaces that I've been in, and then they shut down and they become again shut off. So I think that's really, really important. And I know we weren't talking about children, but I think that, going back to the very beginning of the topic, when we talk about control and vulnerability, we do it a lot with our children, where we're trying to control so much. And I know for me, I can be a type A personality. And it's so great that this topic is coming on, because today I was dealing with so much with myself and my control issues. I was dealing with it at work, having to control things, and then at home trying to control my child. And I was just like, but why do I always feel like I need things and need people to do it the way that I'm telling them to do it? You know, um, and what that does is that it damages the relationship and doesn't make a person feel safe to come out and be who they are. And then when we think about it from a children's perspective, we don't allow children to just be free. And so then therefore, they'll be free in other spaces outside of us, which we don't want, right? You want people to be, you want our children to be able to feel free to operate in the spaces around us. Um, and the more control, or the more control we try to have on how they do things, what they wear, how, I mean, of course, there's a certain thing, a level of from a parent perspective, you do, you know, protect and shield your child. But there's the other piece when it's just like, okay, they want to wear pink, you want them to wear blue. If that's what they want to wear, let them wear them. Is it hurting you? Kind of thing. Like,
Right.
I think it's so important for us to be very mindful of that, because it really can create spaces, where people feel like they can't be themselves around us, because we're so controlling, and then wonder who this person is later on when we get into things like, who are you? And it could have been because they were trying to hide so much. And then, we got to remember, people have different thresholds of what they can hold. And
Mm-hmm.
if you're not allowing spaces for expression, then what ends up happening is that at some point that threshold either is going to walk out or it's going to explode. So you got to be, I think it's so important. I know I've experienced in myself of doing that to people, and also for myself as well. Um, so yeah, I wanted to share some of that.
We thank you, Jessica, for your
Thank you.
insight. I just want to get Kathy's comment in. Kathy says, kindness shows me you hear me or hear you. And I may not always agree, but I understand and I hear you. And I think that's all we want to be, whether it's at work, whether it's with our friends, with your boo. Do you hear me? And matter of fact, I'll take it. Are you listening to me? Because you could hear people and you're not listening. You're like, say that
Yeah.
again. I heard you, but I wasn't listening. So if you can listen to me, then I am free to become more vulnerable with you. But I think it goes back to the first part of it is I have to recognize the areas that my control areas and why. What has made me that way? Because I didn't just wake up that way. Did I have a past relationship that did that thing to me? Was it my childhood that did that to me? Why is my attachment style the way that it is? So for us to be able to do better, right? First, we got to know ourselves to be able to then express ourselves differently in any relationship. So this has been a great segment. And before we, for those of you, again, like, click, and share and subscribe. Sorry. I will ask before we wrap up tonight, right? I'm like, share, click, do all of that. We want that. Smash the button for us. Um, I want to wrap up by just if everyone, Jessica, you're on here, just giving one word that you would like to leave the audience with. So we'll start with Jessica and then we'll go to Vaughn and then I'll go and Ladies on B, you can have the last word.
I don't know if I can do a whole just one word. I
Okay, well,
guess
give
for
us your
me,
sentence.
my sentence would be to practice calling yourself out when control is coming in. I realize when I do that, it helps me to change how I'm directing something. I say, "Oh, I'm trying to be in control right here," and I literally just call myself out. And try practicing also with your friends, people who are, you know, really close to you. Practice being vulnerable. Practice when control is happening, to help you practice that. So that way that when you're in relationships with people and it comes up, you can call yourself out on it and also allow yourself a level of vulnerability to kind of step in and acknowledge what you're experiencing.
Okay, thank you, Jessica. Vaughn.
I would say understanding. That's my word.
Okay. I would say I'm gonna go like Jessica. I can't give one word, but I would say the ability to lean in to the vulnerability.
Mm,
Lean in.
that's good. That's a
Lady
good
Dawn.
one. Mine would be, if I had to put it in one word, I would say trust. Um, and as a sentence, I would just say create safe spaces that allow you to test and grow in the trust of your relationships. And be mindful that when a person is vulnerable or opening up, be careful to pick your spots because that is not the time for us to then turn around and be like, oh, well, look who decided to come out of their shell. And oh, what? You sharing your feelings with me? That is an instant form of rejection that will send that person not just the other way they came from, but even deeper into that space of not being willing to share. When you see a person is beginning to open up, it is because they have found they are risking and believing the space that they are in is safe and trustworthy. So let's just be conscious of that. At least acknowledge it first. Then maybe joke a little bit later on. But I would say
Okay.
create a trusting space.
All right. So thank you everyone in the chat on this panel tonight. We thank you for just being a part of Mondays Beyond the Mic, where there is more in you. Have a great night. Good night.
Good night.
All I do is try to construe this life of mine, and soon one day I'll be able to say I made my way. Don't give up, keep on going. Don't give up, no, no, never done. Can be ignored. Keep on going. Know you got this. Never done.
That was good.